everyone says the barbell is king. You gotta fucking squat if you want to be big legs, because Tom Platz said so. Tom Platz would have had big legs if he fucking ran marathons. The guy is the most genetically gifted leg haver ever. Alright, so first principle of training legs, this applies to everything, but I think it's important with legs. As you guys just saw me demonstrate with calves, you have to train to like failure. Like you have to train to the point of like it being painful and through that. The whole adage, I think that's the word, no pain, no gain. It's often taken out of context, but it's true. Like you gotta train to the point where like you train through the burn, through the pain, if you want to stimulate growth. And I think that's the biggest thing people are missing with legs. That's why people started saying, oh, you got to do sets of 100, sets of 30 with squats. You got to do 20 sets for legs. You got to crush them with volume. I think that kind of like myth, because it is a myth, came about because people are like too much of a pussy to train legs hard. And so if you're not willing to train to failure or train legs hard or train anything hard, you have to make up for that by doing more volume. You don't have to do any more volume for legs than anything else. The literature does right now show that the quads and hamstrings tend to recover a little bit faster than like other musculature, like the pecs and the biceps, but you still don't need to crush them with volume. You know what I mean? Like instead of doing 7 sets per week for like quads, I'll do maybe 9, So it's just a little bit more. But anyway, you have to train fucking hard. Like I know that's, people don't like legs, like training legs as it is because it's hard. So this isn't really what you want to hear necessarily, but if you want to grow your legs, you have to fucking train hard. It's the same with everything, but it's especially important with legs because of the fact that it's so painful to train to failure on legs. The silver lining of that is that you don't have to do 2.5 hour long leg days, because as long as you're training hard, you don't have to do a ton of volume. So it's kind of like there's a trade-off there. But that's rule number 1. That's principle number 1. That applies to everything, but like I said, especially with legs, because you're gonna probably quit further away from failure with legs than other muscles because of how much more it hurts. So lean into that discomfort that much more. Alright, so another thing that, this isn't really so specific to like legs in general, but always do, if you're gonna do RDLs, I recommend doing them pretty early in the session for 2 reasons. The first one is that if you're gonna do RDLs later in the session, after you've done some things that have taxed the lower back, then it's more likely that your lower back is gonna fail before your glutes and hams do, which means it's gonna reduce the growth stimulus that we can produce in the glutes and hams. The second thing is, if you've ever tried to do RDLs after crushing quads, you just really can't. Your quads are probably the primary stabilizer. They have to obviously keep your knee straight when you're doing RDLs. And if your quads are shot and they can't stabilize very well, it's gonna really ruin the output or productivity of your RDL set, and you're just gonna be fucking shaking like a leaf. Your back's gonna have to do more work, etc. So as you've seen here, I did calves first, adductors, and now I'm into RDLs. My quad stuff will come afterward. All the quad stuff I'm gonna do today is gonna be externally stabilized, so I'm not gonna need much lower back for it. It'll be pendulum and I think leg press, and then leg extension or something like that. So my lower back's not gonna fail on me with those movements because they're externally stabilized. gonna go up. So 2.5 kilos. £11, give or take, right? Yeah.
Boats.
And then 2.5 kilos. It's a little bit more than 5 pounds. So this will be 455. This is gonna suck cock.
And what are you going for, 6?
Yeah. Cap it at 6 no matter what.
Oh, really? So if you got 8, you're not going for 8.
I won't have, oh, okay, if I had 8, I'd go for it, yeah. But it's just like, when I'm going this heavy, like I'm this close to my 6 RM,
Yep.
1 rep is worth almost the same as if I added 10 pounds to it, you know what I mean? Basically, maintaining reps is a lot to ask at this point. All right, so the next tip or principle for leg training that I think a lot of people miss out on, it's kind of a 2-in-1. Number 1, train in the length and range for your muscles. So the leg muscles, adductors, glutes, hamstrings, quads, they all benefit from what's called stretch-mediated hypertrophy, which just means they grow more when they're trained in the lengthened position. So for quads, that means like max knee bend. For hamstrings, it means like straight leg and like bending at the hips, etc. They all benefit more from they're all gonna grow more from being trained in those longer lengths. So that's number 1. Use full range of motion on your pendulum, your hack, your leg press. Use full range of motion for legs. Specifically full range of motion into the lengthened position. And that kind of segues me into the second one. When you're in that length and range and you're in the position where the target muscle has the best leverage, slow it down. So as you guys saw with me doing my RDLs, I'm going really slow on the way down. I pause in the bottom where it's the hardest. I basically let the momentum die and then pull back up. So that makes sure that I'm using the muscles that I'm trying to train the entire time. Whereas like you'll see some people do stiff legs or conventional deadlifts or whatever, and they're kind of bouncing off the floor. That's cheating in the sense that it's making it easier in the position where the legs are otherwise going to experience the most growth. So you want it to be hard in that spot, not easy. So with your leg training, make sure you're training in length and ranges, and do yourself a favor and make it hard. Use the target muscle to move the load through every inch of the range of motion. Don't sell yourself short. You'll see when I do my pendulum squat next that I'm gonna do it in such a way that I'm not gonna be able to lift maximum amount of weight, but that's okay. I'm not a powerlifter, I'm trying to bodybuild. I'm gonna be using basically only my quads to move the weight. I could do it where I use like my adductors and my glutes more, and that would allow me to do more weight because I'm using more muscles. But I wanna do it in a way that's gonna bias my quads so I can get the most growth stimulus for my quads out of it. So those are the 2 main things. Train in your length and ranges, full range of motion, and then don't cheat. Tempo, slow tempo on the way down, maybe add some pauses in those lengthened ranges or those end positions where all the tension's on the target muscle, and make sure that you're using the target muscle to create every inch of that range of motion.
No worries, Ross.
I knew I wasn't getting it.
My style. She's got a pair that's nice to stare at, but I want girls gone wild. But I know a place where there's always a show. The dollar decides how far you can go with her. She wraps those hands around that pole. She licks those lips and off we go. She takes
last thing that I think will be a game changer for growing some fucking big wheels is utilizing more machines. Everyone when they get into lifting hears from their fucking gym teacher or their uncle who used to work out, you've got to squat to grow big legs. Squat is the king of leg movements, it's the king of movements, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's fucking bullshit. If you follow me or you've been a subscriber to this channel for a bit, you already know what I'm going to say with respect to using machines, external stability, how that improves motor unit recruitment, how that leverages certain muscles over others. The squat, for example, doesn't do any of those things. So you'll notice that this workout I've used almost all machines, other than my RDL. The RDL is partly just a movement I really like doing with the barbell, so it's an intrinsic enjoyment thing for me, but also because there isn't really much better of a way to stabilize an RDL other than maybe doing like a 45-degree extension, but then those are a little bit harder to load. And the RDL is going to create the longest moment arm for the hamstrings in the longest position. So anyway, long story short, the RDL is probably the only free weight movement that I would recommend for maximizing hypertrophy. Otherwise, you want to do machines. And that's just because machines are better at basically targeting the right muscle. If I'm doing a barbell back squat, for example, my leverages, like the length of my torso, the length of my femur, my shins, that's going to dictate where my body has to be in order for me to be able to stand up with the barbell without falling over on the back squat, right? Whereas on the machine, I'm not going to fall anywhere because the machine is keeping me in one place. It's externally stabilizing me. The advantage that machines have over free weights is that with a machine, you've always got the tension in the right place because the target muscle always has good leverage because you don't have to worry about falling over, you don't have to really worry about coordinating the movement, whereas something like a back squat does. And I think that one of the reasons people struggle to grow legs is because they think they need to do bad movements. You know what I mean? Everyone thinks, oh, if I want to grow big legs, I got to squat. Well, you don't. A squat is not a good movement. But people continue to squat and then struggle to grow legs because that's what they think they need to do. So the third tip is use machines. It hurts so good. Man, there's really something fucked up about how much you learn to enjoy just fucking killing yourself with legs. I don't know what it is. I do have to, this sounds like fucking bullshit bro science, but it's so true. You literally learn, the more you train hard and train to the point of failure and pain, the easier, the more you like it. You learn to tolerate it better, you learn to navigate being that burn, for lack of a better term. You learn to navigate it, you learn to embrace it, you learn to like it. I genuinely enjoy training legs to the point of my legs feeling numb. All right, so just a little recap for you guys. First and foremost, if I were to pick a leg day, if you're not sure how your leg day should look, that leg day that I just did is probably what I would suggest. I think that's definitely, there might be a couple tweaks, context dependent, but that's probably the best possible leg day in terms of exercise selection. It hits every muscle group, it trains things in the right positions, etc. So if you're looking for a leg day, copy that one. Otherwise, in summary, we've got, I just want to kind of go over the things I was discussing earlier. With legs, you got to train hard. Like it's important with every muscle group, but you have to train hard with legs, and you really got to push your limits because your legs can do a hell of a lot more than your brain wants to do. Number 2, like I said, train in the at longer lengths, train in end ranges, and don't cheat. Like don't bounce out of the hardest part of the movements. Spend time, you know what I mean? Like slow those movements down, give a little pause in the lengthened position. So that's kind of 2 birds, 1 stone. Just make sure you're using the target muscle to move the load. The weight doesn't matter. You know, you got to drop the ego. Everyone's heard that before. And then the last one is use machines. Squats are just not going to be a good leg builder. And even if you're built for squats, or you're like, man, I've seen great results with squats, that's fine. But you're going to see better results with something like a hack squat, for example, in terms of quad growth. Like you just don't have to worry about your lower back failing. You don't have to worry about stabilizing. So all the different muscles that fire to stabilize joints while you're doing a back squat, they don't have to do as much work, which means we can produce more force with the target muscle that we're trying to train. So use machines. They're no less functional or whatever the fuck. Function is context dependent anyway. So don't like shy away from machines because everyone says the barbell is king. You gotta fucking squat if you want to be big legs because Tom Platz said so. Tom Platz would have had big legs if he fucking ran marathons. The guy is the most genetically gifted leg haver ever. So like you can't use him as like, well, Tom Platz did this. Anything Tom Platz did would have worked for him. So forget about all that. Trust me when I say I've had so many people tell me, oh, since I started using machines and like, you know, training and maximizing my ranges of motion, like my legs have exploded. Like the research is there and the anecdote is there. Give it a try if nothing else. You know, what have you got to lose if so far nothing's working? But yeah, those are the 3 main principles, or I guess kind of 4 that I would suggest with leg training. And that's really all there is. As if you haven't already noticed, it's pretty simple. It's really not that complicated. It's just a matter of being consistent with it and applying those things every single workout. So I hope you guys liked the video. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one.